Junko Furuta, a crime that exposed human cruelty. People like to believe that evil looks obvious, that it announces itself loudly, that monsters are easy to recognize. But in late 1988, in suburban Tokyo, evil wore school uniforms, lived in ordinary homes, and blended in so well that neighbors mistook screams for noise. Junko Furuta was 16 years old, a quiet high school student. She worked part-time, planned for college, and trusted people the way teenagers are taught to, assuming the world at its core is safe. That assumption cost her life. She was abducted by a group of teenage boys she barely knew. One of them had loose connections to local gangs, enough to intimidate her into silence. She was told that if she tried to escape, her family would be killed. This was not an empty threat to a child who had no reason to doubt it. She was taken to a house, not a basement dungeon, not an abandoned building, a normal family home. For weeks, Junko was held captive. What happened inside that house is not rumor, not internet myth, not urban legend. It was reconstructed through confessions, medical reports, and court records. She was tortured repeatedly. She was starved, beaten, burned, and humiliated. The violence escalated because cruelty, when left unchecked, always does. What makes this case uniquely disturbing is not only the brutality, but the silence around it. The parents of the perpetrators were present in the house. They noticed injuries. They heard sounds. They did nothing. Neighbors heard cries for help and assumed it was teenage noise. Teachers noticed Junko's absence and accepted excuses. Police were misled early on and did not pursue aggressively enough. Every system that should have protected her failed, one by one. By the time Junko died, her body showed the consequences of prolonged abuse so severe that doctors later described it as one of the most extreme cases they had ever documented. When the truth finally emerged, Japan was horrified. But then came the second injustice. Because the perpetrators were juveniles at the time, their identities were sealed. Their sentences were reduced. Some served only a few years. Some later committed violent crimes again. Junko Furuta's name, however, could not be sealed. It became synonymous with suffering. Her parents were left with grief and a justice system that felt painfully inadequate. Laws were questioned, media ethics were debated, but no reform could undo what had already been allowed to happen. This was not a crime of impulse. It was not an accident. It was not a moment of rage. It was sustained cruelty, enabled by fear, indifference, and silence. Junko's story forces an uncomfortable truth. The most inhuman crimes are rarely committed by strangers in the dark. They happen in places that look normal, and they continue because too many people choose not to intervene. If there is anything left to take from her story, it is this. Silence is not neutrality, it is participation. And remembering her name, Junko Furuta, is the smallest act of resistance against forgetting what humans are capable of when no one stops them. Subscribe for more real crime and paranormal stories, because some stories don't end, they wait.